Hello and welcome to my fifth and final reading reflection, and this reflection is on weeks 13 and 15. So the first article that I looked at for week 13 was Using Writing to Understand Bilingual Children's Literacy Development, and it had all of these images of the different stages in that development process. So what you see here in figure 1 on the left is the pre-communicative stage, and this is really interesting. So they have like pictures drawn, and then they kind of just have like random letters drawn, but they're definitely trying to start writing and communicating. And the teacher has even noted here that this top one is English and the bottom one is Spanish, so it's really cool that they're trying to make an effort towards writing. And then the second one on the right is the semi-phonetic stage, and you can see here kind of the same thing, still some pictures, but they're starting to write their letters more clearly and trying to develop words. So the top one is Spanish, and the bottom one is also Spanish as well. And then on this next slide, on the far left in Figure 3 is the phonetic stage 1, and same thing, we've got a picture drawn, but you can definitely tell that they're starting to develop more in writing their words and starting to try to write sentences. And even in this one we have English and Spanish. And then in figure 4 we have the phonetic stage 2. Again, very similar, picture drawn, we have some writing, and they're trying to write words and develop sentences. And then figure 5 is the transitional stage, and you can see this is definitely starting to get really developed now, and they have the Spanish version at the top and the English version at the bottom. So it's really cool to see students develop bilingual writing at the same time. So also in this article, we had this table, and I just thought this was so cool. So we just looked at the different stages, and they provided pictures for examples all the way through the transitional stage. And then the conventional stage is writing is generally correct, so we really didn't need a picture for that one. And then it has the different levels in relation to monolingual Spanish speakers stage of writing development. And then on the far right column, it has bilingual Spanish-English speakers stages of writing development. So this column on the far right is going to be the one that's the most helpful for teachers, especially elementary teachers. And this article, and specifically this chart, would be helpful to monolingual teachers with ELLs in their classroom. So for example, in the pre-communicative stage, generally the same as monolingual English and Spanish, except some children will write the same letters and symbols in both languages, but read them differently in English and Spanish. So for example, like the H in English is, written the same as in Spanish, but in Spanish it's pronounced, in most words at the beginning of it, it's pronounced pretty much silent. So there's kind of some differences like that. But anyways, this chart down through here provides some really helpful tips, especially for monolingual teachers with ELL students. And then in figure 6 here, we also have an example of code switching, which is pretty interesting. So we can see the picture here and then the writing over here. So they've got they've got Spanish at the top and then English at the bottom. And then down here, it kind of shows you how it's read and as it's written. And then at the very end of this article, we have a long list of recommendations, which I thought was particularly helpful to teachers. And then at the very end of the recommendations, it just said, thus, teachers of bilingual children should provide their children with many opportunities for writing and encourage them to view their bilingualism as a strength. In addition, the teachers should dip into the treasure trove of information that writing in 2 languages provides for informal assessment and meaningful instruction. So that was definitely my biggest takeaway from this article, but honestly, I think this article provides a lot of helpful tips, examples, and recommendations for teachers. Then for week 13, I watched this video on the language experience approach, and I basically just took notes and wrote down the steps that they mentioned in this video. So step 1, shared experience. Step 2, review focus question and vocabulary. So for example, she said, "That's Spanish. Do you remember that word in English?" In step 3, informal conversation. Step 4, transcription. Step 5, teacher read aloud. Step 6, corrections. Step 7, choral read. Step 8, chunking the text. Step 9, the typed version. And step 10, extension activities. So some examples of extension activities they gave were sight words, close activities, syntax activities, punctuation activities, phonics exercises, sequencing activities, and translanguaging activities. Then for week 15, I looked at the article Building on Linguistic Strengths, Tenets of a Culturally Sustaining Teacher. So over here on the left, they have the tenets, so building cultural competence, maintaining high expectations, foster critical consciousness, and sustain pluralism. So it had the definition of each of those and then examples in the literacy classroom of what those look like. And then I really liked this little piece that they provided in the article of taking action. So what you can do in your classroom to take action and to build on these tenets. Then in week 15, I watched this video. I really loved this video. It was on teaching bilinguals, even if you're not one, being an advocate for bilingual students. And it was just really powerful to see how there are teachers out there who are not bilingual, who are still trying to advocate for bilingual students. And although I myself am trying to become bilingual, I still, as a mostly monolingual person, would like to be able to advocate for bilingual students in any way that I can. So it was just really refreshing to see this video of teachers who are monolingual but see the value in bilingualism, see the struggles that these students are going through while trying to learn 2 languages, and to really support them and be an advocate for them. So the first tip they provided was view students' language backgrounds as resources in their learning, acknowledge students' language identities and strengths. I've definitely been in classrooms before where there's a lot of bilingual students and it's never brought up about their first language, about the different backgrounds they have, the different resources they bring to the classroom. I don't know, it's just really sad, and I feel like that damages their confidence. They don't feel as valued as the other children in the classroom, and it just makes it harder for them. They don't feel as accepted. They feel like they're trying to be someone else, and they don't realize that their bilingualism is actually an asset. So tip 2, create a culture of inclusion by reading books featuring multicultural and multilingual characters. Literature can be used to build empathy across difference. So of course, I'm sure at this point, if you're listening to this, that you've probably heard of the windows and mirrors concept when it comes to building your classroom library in an elementary school. And that is so important, especially for bilingual students, and not just the different topics in the books that you choose and the different cultures, but also the different languages, like having bilingual books or books just completely in other languages. That's also really important as well. Then tip 3, let go and become a co-learner alongside your students. So you can see in this video that these teachers are making an effort to learn, not necessarily like learn Spanish and how to speak it, but just learn the basics and learn the vocabulary so they can be a co-learner with their students and support them. So as the teacher is trying to learn some Spanish, the students are trying to learn English. And although it takes a very humble teacher to be able to put themselves in that position, I think it's very valuable, and it can really strengthen your relationship and the education of your bilingual students. So overall, these practices make these teachers advocates for their bilingual students, which is something that is very valuable in the classroom. Thank you so much for listening, and that is all I have for you this week, and that concludes the end of all of my cumulative reflections. So thanks so much for listening. Bye!